Berkcast. I'm your host HC. With me is,
Wolf.
and today I guess we are going to cross sides into the side of evil because Resident Evil Infinite Darkness. That was a segue. So, Resident Evil, pretty famous video game franchise, as kept existing since the 90s, and
And
just had its most recent release, a few months ago, actually. But in terms of our experiences with it before going into this anime adaptation, Wolf, what is your experience with the Resident Evil franchise?
it's a pretty successful movie franchise too. Let's not knock the movies.
I haven't seen any of them, but I just know that they're all awful.
Oh no, they're not good stories. They're not good character wise. But if you're looking for just kind of over the top good action, look no further. Resident Evil
Uh,
movies are pretty
You
good.
know, actually, people who I know, like in my friend circle, said that thing about the first one, but none of the sequels.
The first one's really good. The rest of them
Like, I'm
vary.
not sure. I'm not sure which one was it. I think it was. Was it called Afterlife? Maybe. I'm not
Yes, Resident Evil
sure.
Afterlife is the fourth one.
The fourth one? Okay, I think it was this one where one of my friends told me if this movie canceled all the slow motion, it would end in 2.5 minutes. And that was a yikes for me. I
But
won't I won't lie to you.
I still enjoy them. I even with all of the slow motion, I still kind of enjoy it.
Hey,
It's a guilty pleasure.
fair point, fair point. There are a lot of movies I enjoy despite them being messes. Looking at the Venom movie, for example, but it's one of those I was just never interested, and to
That's
be
fair.
honest, that's kind of going to the games as well because I was just never a horror guy much. Like it changed in recent years, but I'm not much of a horror person. So
You're in luck. The
and
Resident Evil franchise hasn't been horror for a long time. Until
I
recently.
know, I know six people were
And
just
five.
like the
And
five
four.
two. Four, no, four I can testify because I actually did play four. Like I will say that I played two Resident Evil games for myself. I haven't beaten them. I'm planning on one day, but just didn't have the time until now. I played four and I played the like two remake. I
Okay.
played both of them. And I enjoyed what I played, honestly. But again, I'm just not that much into horror personally. So I need to give them another shot one time. I can actually play them beginning to end. I also own the 3 remake because I got it as a present, but yeah, I haven't touched it yet. I'll come back to you when I do. So, what is your side with the Resident Evil games?
Oh, man. I have, if I'm not mistaken, I've played the first one. And let me check something real quick to Google just to make sure.
Professional.
I am. I promise. List of games. That's not a list of games, Wikipedia. Why you?
Well, tell me what happens. Maybe I can direct you in the right direction. What is the game?
I've played. Yeah. All right. So I was just making sure it came out at the time I thought it was. So yeah, I've played the second one and the third one. I went back and played them. I didn't play them when they first came out. I was a little too young at the time.
So the originals.
Yeah, I've played some of the originals. Well, I say young. I was 10, 12. So yeah, I played the third one when it came out, I believe, but not the second one. But yeah, and I went back and played the second one. I don't think I've ever played the first one. I might have. I've seen a lot of it though, at the very least. And then I've played some of the other games. I've played four. I've played five. Never played six. No, I take it back. I did play six. Never finished it. That's a game. A game. It's something.
That's what most people seem to say. Like, it's a game. Nobody can say if it's a good game or a bad game. It's just a game.
It's fun with other people, but that's not saying a lot. A lot of things are fun with other people. That doesn't mean they're good. Put it that way.
Yeah. With that said,
But yeah,
straight into
well,
Infinite Darkness.
I've seen a lot of, the second remake and the third remake, and I've seen 7 and 8, but I've not played them personally myself. But I'm fairly familiar with the franchise, and I have done quite a few. Resident Evil is, in my opinion, a fun series to deep dive in on lore because there's so many games. Like, just to, like, even if you count side games, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 games.
He's actually counting. Oh,
I
shit.
actually counted. There's 28 games. And that's not counting other side materials, like they've done dramas, they've done like in-universe documentary things, and they've done other movies.
It's and I think there are novels too. I
Yes,
think.
there are.
Okay.
The novels I think are of the games, but they all do side materials. Well, there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack, and it's akin to, I would say, the deep dives people will do when they go into TV tropes, and they just like click on this trope and click on this trope and click on this trope, and just you keep diving deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Resident Evil's the same way, I feel, lore wise. You just you start at a point and you're like, okay, where does this go? And then you start, okay, where does that go? And you start, and okay, where does that go? And you start reading, and it just doesn't end. So I'm not sure that's a good thing, but I will admit I have done a few deep dives on the lore. I'm no expert, but I've done deep dives on the lore, and it's something.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard
It
and
just amazes me
experienced.
how much what essentially is a very basic, hey, survival horror, zombies, it has so much going on within it, right? It's amazing. I have to admit, like you come into it, it's just simple zombie game, simple zombie world. That's it. It's all I need. But no, there's a lot going on.
With that said, if I may plug another channel that everyone should be looking at, check out Some Call Me Johnny's review on all the Resident Evil games that he covered up until this point, because Some Call Me Johnny is awesome and you should all watch him. There, that's the best I can tell you.
After watching us, because we're better.
No, we will never be as good as Johnny. Johnny is the king of YouTube. Long live Juan Ortiz. Johnny, if you see this, call me. But
You're
anyway.
supposed to talk us up, not other people, Legacy. Come on.
Do you even talk us up? I don't think anyone really talk us up. But
I talk us up a lot. We're the... What is our tagline? You know our tagline. Go read it, ladies and gentlemen.
Did you actually ask me that, or because no, I remember it?
I forgot. I'm looking it up right now.
You came up with that, dude.
You think I remember what our terrible podcast is about?
You forgot your own child.
You think I care about our terrible podcast?
You know something? It is kind of bad that like we've been recording for 12 minutes. And we still haven't talked about the show itself. And I am kind of sorry to say there's a reason for it, because boy, this show is not good.
Look, check out that professional segue. Clap, clap. From an unprofessional and debatably amusing podcast. Wow. I remember.
Yeah, of course.
But Resident Evil Infinite Darkness. It's talking about the show proper, and I would say this is, I don't know if I'd really call it a show. It's more like another movie, similar to the other Resident Evil movies that have come out.
Because, okay, let's just say it like this. It's a 4-episode show, and each episode is around 22 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So, in general, the show itself doesn't last any longer than 90 minutes, give or take.
Yeah. It's about an
and it's like,
hour and a half movie at most, essentially.
yeah, like I'm not sure, but there's a chance it might actually be shorter than some of the actual Resident Evil movies.
I could believe it. This one definitely feels like it's missing some bits here or there, but it's, in my opinion, a very decidedly meh.
I won't even go for man. This was just again, this clocks around 90 minutes, give or take.
Hmm.
I just like second episode, I was lost. I honestly, I couldn't care less. The only reason I even kept going is that I could do this podcast, and I watched all four episodes just few hours prior to this recording, and I'll be damned if I remember something from those four episodes, because I have bits and pieces, but I don't even know what to start saying when we get to the spoiler section, because I don't remember anything. I wasn't able to follow. I was just zoned out by this, and and you could say, oh well, it's made for Resident Evil fans. The fans will get it, and it's like,
Nah.
this is not much of an excuse. Like, if the fans do get it, more power to them. I'm glad they're enjoying it. But for me, when I saw Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings yesterday, I haven't picked up a single comic related to Shang-Chi, and I still had a blast, and that was a 2 hour long movie. So there's a bit of a problem when one adaptation gets me and the other doesn't, when for one adaptation I know nothing about, and for the other adaptation I know some of it. And like, because I was able to say, oh, these are Leon and Claire when we see them in the show. So I don't know, there's a problem here.
I mean,
There's a very big problem here
you
for
know,
me.
speaking to, I'll say this, right? Speaking to what I consider a positive, I think they did quite well with the animation and CGI when
You
it was
see,
when it was slow. When they started getting to like, hey, we need fast movements and we're doing fast movements with the zombies, then it wasn't so great.
so here's my take on it. That, like, in terms of the quality of the animation, in terms of the models, for the most part, the animation looks good. It's even great, and it's amazing that you can do this kind of thing with animation these days. Because if you squint your eyes and if you squint your eyes at some shots, it looks like a live action show.
Yeah, yeah, I would
And
agree.
mhm. But then you also kind of ask yourself, considering there's a Resident Evil movie franchise that's live action, would it be, if you're gonna try so hard to make the animation look like live action, why not just make it live action at this point? Just
It,
so that you can have the video game voice actors?
it is also worth noting they're doing a live action show of, I believe, Resident Evil 3 on Netflix at some point in the future
Then it's
too.
even more pointless. Like, literally, what's the point?
Well,
I I think the show could have been exactly the same and maybe even cheaper to make in some areas if it stayed live action. Like, full on honesty with you.
maybe. I think this works. Like, it's not stylized. There's nothing here that stands out other than like Leon's iconic character look and Claire's iconic character look. Nothing else, and nobody else really stands out. And even for the thumbnail image, you can see two of the other main characters, and they're not people that stand out. They're not people you're going to really take note of. None of them are.
Mhm.
And like, again, nothing here stands out, but I still think the CGI was done quite well. I think, especially when it's slow, when it's them walking around, standing around, talking, just doing normal stuff. I think the animation works quite well. It's when they have to start doing a lot of fast movements that some stuff works, some stuff doesn't. You can kind of see the CGI breaking at the seams a little bit, right?
Mhm.
So again,
Yeah,
it's
and again, quality of animation, great, but at the same time, it also kind of makes me wonder, why make it animated to begin with.
I guess maybe it was cheaper. Maybe it's just, again, I don't know. I cannot tell you. It's just, it works. It's nothing terrible. It's nothing to write home about. I feel it's not
Yeah,
going to win any awards to say that,
kind of like the show itself
unless it somehow
because
does win an award. In which case, we've entered into the alternate universe. I'm okay with it, but it's weird.
I don't know anymore. I don't know what to tell you.
But yeah, speaking to story and characters, though, that's where I come back to the meh. I don't think there's anything here that's inherently bad, but it's bland.
It, it's bland. It's boring. Like most of the traditional Resident Evil stuff doesn't even come in until I don't even know when. And the show also ends on this very, you know, okay, I guess that's done. Let's never bring this up again, and everyone moves on with their lives. So like I finished this and I'm like, what did I just watch? Like, what changed? What got done? What happened? Why was I supposed to care? Why am I supposed to care? I literally can tell you nothing. I know this is a bad sign of a review and I can say nothing about the show, but I don't care. I don't think the show even cares. It's just something that happens, and maybe it's a good background noise for if you want to take a nap or something.
So I
Do
think
that.
I think the idea here is like, hey, people like Leon and Claire, what were they doing? And this is basically set a little bit after, I believe, Resident Evil 4, or yeah, Resident Evil 4. It's like 2 years
Yeah,
after Resident
probably
Evil
for
4.
because they mentioned that Leon saved the president's daughter.
Yeah, it's two
So yeah.
years after Resident Evil 4, and it's before Resident Evil 5, and specifically, it's before basically the raid on the Spencer estate, right? So it's a little bit before all of that happens in Resident Evil 5, but after Resident Evil 4 is where it's set. So basically, hey, you like everybody likes Leon and Claire. Here's what they're doing
Then do a
during Resident
Resident
Evil
Evil 2,
5.
do a Resident Evil 2 adaptation or something. Like,
Well, they've done that
might
already.
as
See, we got to
well.
have something new. They've done Resident Evil 3 adaptation already as
Then do
well.
the something new in this. Then do the new interesting. Don't because I'm seeing Leon and Claire, and I'm like, what? Kind of wish I was playing Resident Evil 2 now. Maybe I should just read that. Maybe I should just re-download it from the PSN store and play
I,
it. But
this show, I would say, puts me in the mind of a lot of Six. And if you ever see Six's story, I think a lot of people would agree with me, where it tries to mix in Resident Evil with a quote unquote serious story. Well, not so much serious, but I would say it mixes it in with like the idea of U.S. politics and war and stuff like that. It does something similar to what Six does with that, and it doesn't work. It I just don't think that's something that works for Resident Evil, to be honest. Most of the time in previous Resident Evils, when they start mixing in, hey, let's do politics with Resident Evil and like wars and countries doing stuff in the foreground and make that a part of the story for this one, it just doesn't work very well. In the
yeah,
past,
and
that's kept into the
you know,
background and it's a focus on Umbrella and fighting bioterrorism, and that's where
yeah,
I
and
think it
that's something I want to
shines.
say to ask you because you seem to have more experience than I do. Most of the political stuff I remember about the old games is that there's this comparison called Umbrella, which is
Mhm.
basically what spread the zombie virus in this universe.
Yes.
Eh, So, this is fine as a background stuff, and maybe like, our heroes kind of getting mixed up into this whole fiasco and everything. But Resident Evil doesn't really strike me as a franchise that should really put emphasis on politics,
I mean,
or at least because yeah, you can obviously have like the one scene of people like sitting in a political be like, well, we need to do this in order to get that, and then we'll have the. But also, if you take this too literal, if you try and make it too politically correct, if you try to make it too much like real life, if you want to actually people to actually take it seriously, this is where I think everything falls apart because like look at the games you're adapting here. And say what you want about them, they are. I'm sure they're fun and they are obviously popular for a reason. But no one really praised the stories for being like, for being masterpieces or anything. People just want an excuse to go somewhere and be afraid. So do that. We don't need all of this political bullshit that no one cares about. Just let me have fun and be afraid.
I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, a lot of the backstory in Resident Evil is told through you, like, hey, you picked up this newspaper article and you read a bit about it, right? Like,
Of course.
small
Yeah.
spoiler, not really a spoiler, but they mention in this movie show that Raccoon City was nuked and the U.S. covered it up. That's something that's in, I believe, the fourth or fifth game. It's in one of the games
I
where they
th-
talk about that.
I think it's full, but don't quote me on that.
They definitely talk about it in one of the games, though. I remember that much, and it's
Mhm.
referenced in other games as well and other media that within Resident Evil as well. That the U.S. nuked Raccoon City to clear out the infection of what was left and covered everything up, right? And just
Yeah,
made up that it was an
but
accident, stuff like that. Umbrella still got their comeuppance because of it, but the U.S. didn't officially say what had happened, right? And so, like, that's always been like, hey, here's what the countries are doing about this. And like, you had, oh, the UN, the United Nations got together and created the BSAA, right? Stuff like that. Like, it happened in the background, and stuff came from it that sometimes got it into the foreground to some degree, but it was still almost always background. The
yeah,
big focus is on these
and not only
characters and
that,
them dealing with the situations they find themselves in
Mhm.
and trying to
and
survive.
and not only that, like you said, it was always optional. Like this was for the people who were like, okay, I
This was for the
like
people who
them.
make the wiki.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, no, but some people legit find
No, no,
interest
I
in
get you. Yeah.
finding those things and
Hi,
do
the person
and
who
do the
deep
lore
dived.
reading.
That's me.
Yeah, okay, good for you.
I don't
But at the
recommend
same
it.
time, that's the thing about the game. You can have the
Yeah.
main plot and then add things into it that you don't have to read it, you don't have to find it, but if you do, you get a nice bonus. But here, it's like they can't change it so that all the side stuff that you can find and read only if you want to is suddenly the main attraction, and the actual plot and the zombies and the fun stuff is is in the background, and it's like, no, it shouldn't be like that. Even adaptation or not. And yeah, obviously, I'm not against the idea of just having scenes like in the White House, or actually debate like what they're gonna do with these characters. This I don't mind. But when it takes such a big priority and all you get is just explanation, research, and then you end the show with, what, maybe let's not go public with that. That's aggravating, because then nobody won. Nobody, I mean, in terms of the people watching, nobody got anything out of it. It's just something that happened. Thank you for your hour and a half.
You also just
Bye.
don't get a lot of action scenes, which is kind of the fun of Resident Evil, especially if you're
Exactly.
doing a
Well, the
show or a
zombies.
movie.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't get a lot with that. And what you do get tends to be which I guess Resident Evil is set in very dark rooms as well, but for a movie that doesn't quite work as well when I want to see the action. Okay, all I'm seeing is
Yeah.
flashes of guns and I can't really see the action because it's so dark. Like, kind of a problem. Like, for the games that make sense, that works for the atmosphere because you're putting the player into that. But
Yeah,
for
but also you can do
stuff like
dark
this,
rooms.
not so
You can
much.
do dark rooms and dark action scenes in movies like this, and still have people see what's going on. But
True.
it's all but like in here, it's like It's okay. Make it dark, make it dark, but so nobody will be able to see it. Hey, part of the atmosphere. It's Resident Evil. Horror, dark, dark. All the lights aren't off in this place. Off. No, dark. Now.
Fair enough.
Mhm.
Jumping into spoilers, I suppose. Finally, but yeah, like before we do,
Is there
yeah,
even a point?
no,
Is
no,
there even a point?
I think there is a little bit of a point, at least a little bit, maybe, possibly, probably not, but we got a pad for time, HC.
Do we? Do
Yes,
we?
yes.
I think we. Okay,
I have a
fine.
little
This.
bit to say at least.
Okay, so okay, no problem. Spoilers from this point on, if you care. Three, two, one.
If you care.
Yes,
That
you're
one guy,
still
that
here.
one person out there cares.
Mhm. So still here. Good. That means you either don't care or you saw the show. One of the two. So Wolf, what do you have to say?
Yeah, all right. So the show is set during like a made up Penang Civil War. It went awry. Stuff happened there, and we're set in the modern day where supposedly China, quote unquote, hacked the U.S. and then zombies are released in the White House somehow. And really, what it was a U.S. senator was kind of greedy and just trying to start a war with China because he wanted more money and more power, essentially. Or not a U.S. senator, but the U.S. Secretary of Defense, right? And he was going to unleash bioweapons on China and then sell people the vaccine to make a lot of money. Basically, his entire thing is, I'm greedy, I want money, I want power. That's it. Which have to say, for Resident Evil, when you think of Resident Evil villains, yeah, sure, there are those type of villains within Resident Evil, but the more memorable villains, the ones that stick out, definitely don't have those kind of, aspirations. Like Albert Wesker, for instance. That's not his aspiration. That's not what he wants at all. And he sticks out in a lot of people's minds, mostly because he's been in a lot of the games, but he sticks out in a lot of people's minds because him as a villain is is unique to the franchise, right? Now I get not everyone in the franchise is going to be a stellar villain, but and it's just, something else, please. Something that works with Resident Evil more. Probably would have been nicer and made it stand out more. And we do get uh Graham as kind of a villain who turns into the big, I look like Nemesis kind of, but different.
Yeah.
Bioweapon at the end,
Uh,
and he's completely sentient. Unlike other bioweapons, he can talk and think and has very little issue. There's stuff here that I think would be interesting, but there's no real time to explore any of it.
mhm.
And most of our new characters die in this film, or like the only one that lives new character wise is Wilson. Like on screen a lot, anyways, is Wilson, and we see him with Tricell at the end, which is basically just a setup. So like, hey, here's Tricell doing stuff behind scenes, right? As a nod
Mhm.
to people who are fans of the series, right? But
Yep.
otherwise, most of the characters you see in this beyond Claire and Leon don't show up anywhere else. And you can tell very quickly, all right, that the two characters you see on screen besides Leon and Claire, which is Shinmei and Graham on the right and Shinmei on the left, are are both behind like the initial attacks, right? Like you can tell they're behind it. You can tell they're the ones doing stuff. It's just, learning that, oh, Wilson is the true bad guy. Okay, cool. And when you learn it, you don't feel anything for it. And you learn that there's stuff going on, like, Pan the US unleashed bioweapons there and tried and covered it all up, and a lot of people died from that and everything. And you have Claire investigating off this. Claire does nothing in this, by the way. Absolutely nothing, which is really disappointing considering what she's
Yeah.
like in the games.
Again, like I said, is this entire thing is she has this investigation that she's leading, and then by the end, Leon tells her, "Nah, let's not
I
go."
mean, she finds out the same thing Leon's already finding out, but slower.
Yeah.
And she just, again, like she has to be saved by Leon at least twice, and she helps out a little bit, but this is the same Claire, by the way, that went through Raccoon City and killed a lot of zombies and did a lot of shit and had to face Nemesis and stuff like that. Well, not Nemesis, but Mr. X, I think he's called.
Yeah.
Like she had to do all that herself as well, and it's like, girl can do some shit. She's not helpless, but okay, I guess this is what we're doing with her. Again, right? It's meh. Like that's what I keep coming back to. It's meh. It's not. I don't feel. I wouldn't recommend it, and I wouldn't go out of my way to watch this again. I would say, if you're a fan of Resident Evil, go do anything else with Resident Evil. You'll have more fun with it, I feel. This, you get a few references to the main series. This is basically just a story set between this time where you can kind of get an idea, like, hey, this is what Claire and Leon were doing. But nothing you see here matters because it doesn't really affect anything in regards to the main series, because we can't do that because the main series is already set. We can't change anything from the games now with this. So this kind of just fits in snugly and nicely and doesn't really disturb anything too much because it can't. Which I get, but at the same time, it basically just means we're kind of back to, as you said before, nothing really happens.
Well, anything else on this? Or because I literally have nothing.
You get the voice actors from the characters in the games back. They do great. And as I said
With
before,
the
like,
little they have, honestly, but
yeah,
I get you.
I mean, again, it's serviceable, right? It's
Mhm.
just, I wish, I think if there's anything that could have made this a little bit more fun, it would have been just do more action scenes. At least then it would have felt fun, right? Because when you do get some of the action scenes, they are fun to watch to some degree.
Mhm.
It's just they don't last long enough, and they're more often than not interrupted by either talking or another scene with talking, or they just end very abruptly, and we just don't get to spend a lot of time with them. Like they do a cool thing here that I think would be absolutely fun in a survival horror Resident Evil game where you're being trapped on a sub with zombies and zombie
Yeah,
rats, and it ends
but that's
so
exactly
quickly.
my problem. But that's exactly kind of my problem too. If the show is so boring, which it is, I just want to play a game. Why isn't this a game?
Fair, fair. But yeah, I'm honestly, I have nothing else to say. It's very meh. I don't inherently recommend it. You might find a little bit of fun here, but after it's all said and done, I think if you skip this, you're not missing anything as far as, Resident Evil lore goes. Look up the synopsis on the wiki. You'll get everything you need from it from there. Genuinely. It's 2 paragraphs long, and you don't need anything more than that.
Okay. Well, I know this is uncharacteristically short of us, but I really have nothing else to add to this. It's just.
Poor Resident Evil Infinite Darkness. It never got a chance. I
Mhm.
tried to give it a chance, but even I can't save this.
Like, you said it never had a chance. I really wonder what kind of chance did the makers want to give it? I really have no idea what was the point.
I my assumption is it's for, hey, Resident Evil, the shows, there's Resident Evil shows, we're doing stuff, get hyped for that sort of deal, like trying to gauge, like, how many people are interested in this? Do you guys want this? The problem is,
No one cares now.
eh,
I can tell you that
well,
much.
the
I think so,
problem is
anyway.
it's so mad that it's going to make people not want this. It's like,
Hmm.
there's a live action Resident Evil series coming out on Netflix sometime this year or next, right? That might be really good. I don't know. It might be really bad. I don't know. But if you're putting this out first to like hype, 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 You killed the hype.
I, you know what? Yeah, I'm not saying that the live action show isn't gonna be good. Maybe we'll even
Oh no,
cover it
like
once
it,
it
it
comes
might be
out.
really great, but if
But
you're putting this
as
out to
is,
get
if
people
this
hyped
is,
for that,
then no.
yeah, it's not gonna work. I think this is gonna have the opposite effect. This is gonna make people go, yeah, no, don't like Resident Evil at all. Resident Evil live action thing, yeah, I remember watching that show, that CGI show. That wasn't good. I'll pass. And then we get nothing. So if you're gonna try and get people engaged and you want them to like, hey, people are interested in this. Let's get people hyped for it. We want to know, like, would you like more of this? You got to come out with something at least somewhat better than this. Something that
Mhm.
stands out in some way. The problem with this is it's just so bland. It doesn't stand out at all. And because of that, it just doesn't work.
Yep. That's really all there is to it. It just doesn't work.
Unfortunately.
Mhm.
Well, I'm done if you're done. So we can end
I'm
here.
done too, so I guess that's all for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed. What do you think about Resident Evil Infinite Darkness, which is basically the fate that this show is gonna suffer? You can tell us all about it in the comment section below, on our Twitter, which is Berkcast, Twitter capital B, capital C, and on our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team. So until next time, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And we will see you all next time. Take care and have a good nap while you're watching this show.
Bye bye.